Hi, YouTube. Welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Sabirasri. Today is Friday, and I decided to go live because when I go live, I'm able to just sort of get it right up there right away to you guys. I was late today because a million and one things, and with the time difference for a lot of you, me being in Hawaii, it already ends up being really late. So if I record and then upload, it just takes a lot longer than if I just say, hey, I'm here. And plus, I think it's really fun when people, hey there, from a fan, musty fan. It's really awesome to be able to see, speaking of the chat. I think that's so cool. So I love being able to kind of interact with you guys. Just so that you know, there is a delay usually in the chat, the way that it's been working when I've done it before. Hi, Missy's Enchanted Channel. Hi, Stu. So there is a delay with it. So sometimes you might hear me talking and then I might not see your comment right away. So just know that it can sometimes take a little bit to load to get me your comment. So yeah, so today we are talking about shadow work. So I hope people have watched some of the other videos this week. If you haven't, I'll kind of let you in on what we're doing. Oh, good. Messy Fan said there isn't much of a delay. Yes, that is awesome. That means we're good today. Good day. So yeah, so we are talking about shadow work. So the question asker wanted to know, do we do shadow work in our practice? And also, you know, how do we feel about Jung and the creation of sort of the shadow, right? And how do we incorporate it if we do into our practice, that sort of thing, and to speak on it a little bit. So as if you have been watching me on this channel, you know that I'm a therapist. And so Jung is something that I have studied quite a lot of. So when I think of shadow work, I always think of Jung. It's sort of intrinsically linked in my brain. However, I don't want to focus on Jung because you could open any, you know, psychology textbook, you could Wikipedia him, you know, all of that. So you could do all that with Jung, and he's got his own stuff. What came out of that, though, was this idea of working within your own shadow, and the way that in practice, the way that we can use that in then a spiritual sense, right? So what I really love so much about it is the idea of the mirror. So let me explain what I mean. So as a therapist, one of the things that I like to say I do is I'm not there to give someone advice. I'm not there to fix their life, right? What I'm there is to be a mirror, because oftentimes it can be really hard to see ourselves if we don't have a mirror to look in. I mean, imagine, you know, trying to apply eyeliner, you know, if you wear makeup, or, you know, trying to picture, you know, what's on your face if you didn't have a mirror, right? It can be really, really difficult. And so the mirror is sort of this symbol for being able to reflect back yourself through someone else's eyes, right? Because that person can see things that maybe we can't. And so the idea of shadow work then is to allow ourselves to, almost in a way, the way I view it, at least the way that I do shadow work, is to step outside of yourself so that you can look down on yourself and really see all those shadows, those nooks and crannies, those little things that maybe you were not really aware of. And they don't have to be negative. They could be super positive. They could be things that we just don't want to, you know, to acknowledge about ourselves because maybe we've been pushed down and told that, you know, we're not good at something all our life, even though we really are. We just haven't got it in our head. And to be able to look at ourselves and go, wow, you know what? I rock at that. I'm awesome at that. That is part of shadow work. So it's not just a negative thing. It can be, though, and it can be something to really examine yourself, look at your nooks and crannies, those unconscious, you know, desires, things that lie in your subconscious, right? The things that maybe we don't always want to admit to ourselves, that maybe where we have, you know, some sort of preconceived notion about something, right? Or maybe we're being judgy. That's one of the ones where I definitely check myself. I am always looking inwards and trying to say, all right, am I being just judgmental here, or is there cause, right? So a while back, I talked about my work with dialectical behavioral therapy. So, and in a way, DBT kind of grabbed a little bit of the shadow stuff from Jung. And the idea basically is that we don't judge our judging, and we try not to judge. So let me explain what that means. So basically, what I'm talking about is being able to talk about something in an objective way without judgment words. So looking at yourself, right? So part of the shadow work would be to look at yourself objectively, right? No positive or negative connotation, just absolute kind of Spock-like, Vulcan-like fact, logical, right? No notions of this is a bad thing, or this is a good thing, or I smell good, or I smell bad, right? Those things are judgment words, right? So what we want to do is be able to look at ourselves in that objective light, or at least this is what I do in ritual and my own shadow work, is to look at myself in that objective light so that I can clearly see myself without any of the shame or guilt or even ego sometimes, any of that. You take away all of that and you strip it down to just what is going on. Let me see my whole self as I am, no judgment. And we're going to place value on that, right? Because we do make judgments in our daily life. So there's different types of judgment. There's evaluative judgment. And one of the things that evaluative judgment can do is it allows us to put weight on something that's important. So for example, we might have a few things that we need to do, and we can make a value judgment on which is the priority, right? Which one's most important to us right then. So that it makes sense. It makes sense why we would make that judgment, right? But other types of judgment are a little bit, more when we do a value judgment on someone because of maybe the clothes that they're wearing, or if they made a comment, we might judge them. Like if they made a political comment that we don't agree with, we might make a judgment on them, right? So now we might feel justified because it might not be how we feel. However, it's still a judgment. And judgment isn't in and of itself a bad thing. It's just oftentimes it can cloud what's really behind it. And so when we do shadow work, or when I do shadow work, I try to make sure that I am in the most objective mind I can be. And it's hard, and it takes so much practice. And I got my master's in this. So it's definitely, I'm not saying it's this easy thing to do. The more though that you can incorporate it into, like when you're doing shadow work, is try to see yourself in this pure objective. All right, what was I doing? What did I say? So not what was not the perceived tone around it or anything like that. What were the exact words? What was going through my mind? What were my priorities, right? Like think about all of those things in an objective way. And then you can look on it and say, all right, was I out of line? Was this something that I should fix about myself? Was this something I did really, really well and I made a difference and an impact in someone's life? All of these different things. It's just starting at that square one, stripping away everything else, getting at that foundation, and then you can grow from there. So that's sort of that's my take on shadow work. That's what I do with myself. I do with clients. I don't call it shadow work with them. We just talk about getting to our core self. So in DBT, we have a thing called wise mind. And so that's sort of the verbiage that I use. But when I'm talking about my religious practice, I definitely use shadow work because I feel like there's so much spiritual part that can sometimes live in the shadows. I know growing up a lot, I was always pretty out and pretty vocal about my family's path, and my family wasn't always super keen on that, just because it got me in a lot of trouble sometimes. I definitely got bullied for it. And so, being in the shadow, right? So not just shadow work, but being in the shadows is part of the faith in some ways, right? I think we all battle against it quite a bit, but a lot of us want to be out, right? And we can't. Not everybody can. But I think we'd all love it if it was totally mainstreamed and we could, live free from any kind of oppression. Wouldn't that be amazing if there was no oppression in the world? Wow. Novel concept. So, I think though that the idea of shadow work is very intrinsic to our paths as pagans, and or for anybody who's watching, if you were thinking about or learning more about being pagan, shadow work is definitely something you can try and look at yourself. And I do think it can be fun to do a mirror exercise. So if you've never done shadow work before, I like to, anytime I've had a mentor, a mentee, sorry, not a mentor, a mentee, I've had them do this. So you sit yourself in front of a mirror and you describe yourself objectively, no judgment words, right? So like I couldn't say, oh, my hair looks stringy, right? Because stringy has judgment to it, right? I could say my hair has an S curve pattern right now. I could say I am wearing a black shirt, right? Those are objective things, but I couldn't say I'm wearing a stylish shirt, right? Because those are judgment words, right? And so look in the mirror and just describe yourself as objectively as you can, right? And take your time, get to know your nooks and crannies. I think that's one of the things that is definitely something that I have to remind myself a lot is I tend to become so fixated on helping others and taking care of everybody else in my life that I forget myself at times. And that means I end up forgetting my nooks and crannies. And when I do that, then I get sick, for one. I was really, really sick like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. I ended up needing antibiotics. I was so sick. And I think when we get stressed out and life kind of happens, we forget our nooks and crannies. We forget to take care of all those little extra parts of ourselves. And they're the parts that we're not even aware of. I mean, I like to use the analogy, like, who's thinking about their left toe? Now that I said it, I bet you feel your left toe. But before that, were you really thinking about your left toe, right? So once we bring it into our mind, right? Once we acknowledge it and bring it to the forefront of our prefrontal cortex here, right? Then our brain, right? Our cognitive functioning, right? The higher functioning self, it begins to kind of latch on and process it. But when we're not thinking about it, it's sort of like a background app, right? Like it's a background process. If you were in your computer and you were to like look up your, your activity log on Macs or, I guess, Control-Alt-Delete, right? So what are all the processes running on your computer, right? There's all sorts of things running in the background that you're not doing, right? And that's sort of the way our brains are too. There's all these things running on in the background. And so the more that we can get to know our nooks and crannies, and the more that we can get to know all of ourselves and all those little thoughts that creep up, especially when we have doubts, right? Or if we have imposter syndrome, that comes up a lot. I hear a lot of people when, they're in a field or they're doing something they love, but then they feel like, wow, am I fake? Or am I really as good as I think I am? Like all these other people, they're going to find out I'm faking or something, right? That's called imposter syndrome. And it's totally normal. It's just because, we have self-doubt and, and we're oftentimes raised in a culture where we're supposed to be super humble and not, be proud of our achievements. And that can be really hard. And so when you get to know those nooks and crannies of yourself and you really get to know sort of those inside parts that make you who you are, and they make you amazing and special and fabulous. And at the same time, they help you grow and learn, because we are going to have parts, nooks and crannies that maybe we don't like. Maybe something, wow, I bet I could change that. I bet I could know better and do better, right? So Maya Angelou said, you do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, you do better. And I think that's what shadow work really comes down to for me, is getting to know our nooks and all the crannies. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for all I wanted to say. Do you guys have you got me here. So was there any questions that you have for me, or did I explain that okay? Well, this is kind of a great moment because I can get your questions right away without having to kind of go back and check the comments. So was there anything, did that make sense? Was there any other questions you guys want to know? Just anything? Realizing too, it might be a little bit dark. Let me turn on the light. Woo. All right. Is that better? Where should I start? Emperor Farah, where should I start? Oh, okay. I don't know. Where should you start? I'm not sure. So, but if you guys have questions, the series overall gave a pretty great overview. Anna Joy. Awesome. Oh, where should I start? You're new, Emperor. Okay. Oh, to magic. Oh, gotcha. I thought you meant with the video. All right. Where should you start? Oh my gosh. Oh, you're totally new to magic. So are you new to the religion, like holidays and things, or are you new to just spell casting and things like that? So are you new to all of it, or have you been doing some stuff and then you're new? So kind of where is your new is what I'm wondering, because that will define how I answer. Let's see. Better Life Broadcasting, Jeff Hudson. How do we separate the self-doubt that is ours versus self-doubt that's been showed into our lives by outside circumstances? Oh, what a great question. That was awesome. So if you don't know, I'll read it in case you can't see the comments. It says, Better Life Broadcasting said, just popped in. How do we separate the self-doubt that is ours versus the self-doubt that has been shoved into our lives by outside circumstances? Okay, so that one takes a little bit of work, right? And so one of the big things is looking at your own schemas. So what is a schema? So a schema is a core belief. So for example, you can start looking at yourself and saying, okay, well, I went out and this is just an example. I went out and I got, stayed up super late a night before an interview, right? And so when I went to the interview, I was super, super tired. So I didn't do my best and, but they probably wouldn't have taken me anyway. Right. So that's like a scenario, a case study, right? So I would look at that and I would say, all right, well, what is the schema that's going on there? What is the core belief? And if you whittle down all the layers, then you might say on face value, the core belief would be, right, that the person thinks that, maybe they're not good enough, right, for it. That's not core enough, right? Because you want to know, well, you're not good enough. Well, why would you think you're not good enough? Where did that come from, right? So you have to peel back the layers like an onion to figure out why you're doing something. Why? So if I were talking to that person who then would be like, well, I'm not good enough, so I just, I stayed up late because I knew I wasn't going to get it anyway. So there's self-sabotage, right? But why? Well, in this case, the one I'm thinking of, you could bring it all the way back to somebody who was constantly invalidated, right, growing up. And they were told that they weren't good at anything, right? And so they feel like they're never going to be good at anything, right? So their core belief, right, is that they're worthless, right? So that would be that core schema, that core belief. And that's what you tackle. Then it's yours. And here's the thing. Is it environmental? Absolutely, it's environmental. Our environment totally shapes us. I mean, think about all of the horrible messages we get all the time from media. I mean, growing up, being a bigger girl, only seeing super skinny people, having people make fat jokes all the time. Like, I totally internalized all of that. And so our environment, it's not something necessarily that we can totally separate, but we can figure out what we've internalized and what we've latched onto, right? Because there's so many messages out there, and some of them we've brushed off, and some of them we haven't, brought down deep inside, but some of them we have. And those are the ones that we want to address, regardless of where they came from, right? We just want to know where they came from to help address it. Because if it came from the media, well, let's work on that. Come on, the media. So it's something where I say focus on getting down to the bottom layer and seeing what your core schema, that core belief really is and how it came about. Because once you know that, then you can start tackling it. If that makes sense. I hope it does. So Emperor, and sadly, it often comes from others, especially parents projecting their own shame. Oh, yes, absolutely, Anna Joy, absolutely. Oh, better, excellent, good. Okay, good. I'm glad I answered your question, Better Life. So Emperor, I wanted to get back. You said all of it, and I just started doing magic this month. I've been studying and learning paganism, witchcraft for a while. Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's fabulous. Where to get started? There's a lot of different things. I mean, you say that you've been learning, so my guess is you probably have found some online resources or some books. I'm a big fan of Raven Garmasi's books. He's a personal friend of mine, and I really just love that he's a scholar as well as a practitioner. So he really gives you a lot of, factual research, historical research, which is awesome. And then obviously, Cunningham would be a great place to start, some books, and also just search in the pagan perspective, because we've done so many videos on how to get started, like how to do your first ritual and things, all of that. And then the other one would be to seek out resources in your town. I mean, we've got all over the country, there's pagan pride events and different celebrations. I'm not sure where you're located, but there's usually like an occult shop. There's, sometimes there's circles you can join. There's all sorts of things. So those would be my suggestions for how to get started. Oh, you said you'll look into it. Great. I'm so glad. Oh, good. So you guys are talking to each other too. That's great. Give yourself permission to go the dangerous feeling place where you can feel it. I love that. Give yourself permission. Think about that. We so often, Better Life Broadcasting, thank you so much for bringing that up. We so often don't give ourselves permission to do things, right? It's almost like we bring that, that should on. How many of you should on yourself? I should have done this. I should have been there. I should have thought this. I say you're shoulding all over yourself. I mean, really, it's the shoulds. They're toxic, right? And so all the time, right? Is this a moment where I could have been better? Did I have the information to be better, right? Because if I didn't know, you can't know what you don't know. You can't. You can't. And so putting yourself in a position where you feel bad because you didn't know something, well, I just don't see a lot of point in that. I do see a point in, though, learning, right? Learning and saying, wow, you know what? I didn't know this. And oh my gosh, now I know this and I am going to do better and I'm going to make changes, right? That's progress. That's growth. That's amazing, right? So I would definitely encourage that. Better. Also been known to shouldn't on yourself too. Yes, shouldn't on yourself. Oh, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that, right? Oh yeah. The shoulds have the should has such a form. Shoulds, they just go everywhere. It's should everywhere. Sorry, I made myself laugh. But it's so true. The shoulds are they're toxic. And I like to say grow. I want to see in myself growth. So if I don't know something, I'm not going to sit there and say I should have known, better or something. It's like, no, I didn't know, and I can't know what I don't know. Once I know it, though, then I can do better. And that's something where I like to focus on. So, Emperor, you said you're in San Jose. San Jose, oh my gosh, you have PantheaCon. PantheaCon, the biggest pagan convention, I think, in the world. I think it might be. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it might be the biggest one. It is huge. It is amazing, and it's right near you. So highly recommend. And they do all sorts of stuff. They have all sorts of events. There's an amazing occult shop, actually, I think it might be in Santa Cruz or in San Jose, but it's near you. I used to live in Menlo Park. So, but amazing, amazing area. Highly recommend it. PantheaCon. So, yeah. So make pagan friends. You're doing it right now. I mean, look at this. You were just talking with Better Life Broadcasting. Emperor Fearon in the comments just asked how to make pagan friends. Well, you're doing it right now. Get to know people. You've got all of these people right in the comment section. So you can totally get to know people, make pagan friends. Also join pagan groups on Facebook. That's a great way. Go out to pagan pride events. Go to PantheaCon, stuff like that. Better Life Broadcasting, one of my first sigil spells went awfully wrong because I didn't know something. So instead of paying off the house, I have almost ended up buying a freaking second one. Learning is important. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that sucks. That really sucks. And that's the thing, learning is super important. And, and it's, sometimes the lessons are super hard and suck, and it's something that, I think if we're constantly in a state of learning, then we're only bettering ourselves. I hope to never, ever stop learning. I want to be on my final day, right? Final day in this body, in this life. I want to be learning. I want to learn something brand new, something that, in hopefully many, many, many years, that I've never ever known before or never seen before. I never ever want to stop learning or experiencing. Awesome. Great. Thank you, Emperor. Anna Joy, online pagan forums are another great way to go. People there tend to be very welcoming. Yes, they do. Absolutely. Oh, is it Liana? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Advice on how to get back into your practice if you've stopped for a bit or lost the spark you once had. Oh, totally. What a good question. And I said it right. Thank you. So lost the spark. Well, try some shadow work. I mean, we're talking about shadow work today. Definitely take a look at yourself. Start doing some work on all your nooks and crannies. And, that can sometimes get you back into it because you're going to be learning about parts of yourself that you've yet to tap into. So that would definitely be a way. The other thing that I can't recommend enough is pick a holiday and go all out. I know this sounds weird, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. It's just, it's the energy you put into it. But just pick a holiday and say, you know what? I am going to make this the best ever. I did that. I do that every year for Samhain. I'm super busy. My wife and I are super, super busy. And so we don't often get a chance to go all out for most of the holidays. I mean, solstice, it was barely got to do anything, it's like, oh yeah, here it is. And then it's gone, we just don't have the time. But Samhain is the one that I've picked because it's always been the most important in my family, and just go all out. I make a huge big dinner. We try and, decorate as much as we can, even if it just means finding, stuff we already have around the house to just change it up to make it look different, or going outside and finding things to decorate with, right? Nature is a great resource. So if it's leaves or something like that. So finding a holiday and going all out for it and just getting into it and throwing yourself into it, that's a great way to get the spark back into your practice. So I know I've had to do that many times because I just get so overworked. I work, I've got got 1, 2, 3, about 4 jobs right now. And I'm not including pagan perspective. So I hear you on that. Losing the spark is hard. So that I would definitely recommend some shadow work and picking a holiday and going all out. So yeah, I think I can answer. So I'm going to I'll answer like 2 more questions. And then I gotta get going because I've got the puppy over here and we got to take a walk and then we've got to make dinner. It's almost 6 o'clock at night here in Maui. Let's see. What are some good pagan forums? Pagan forums. Go on Facebook and depending on what you're into, if you just put pagan in and then it will pop up stuff that's kind of similar to what you like. Like, for example, I love planners. I make stickers and stuff. So I'm part of a pagan planners group, right? So that you can plan your holidays and your moon phases and even put tarot in it, all of that stuff so that you can kind of get your religion and your planner all in one. So just look up on Facebook what you're kind of into and you'd be surprised. There's probably something already there for you. And let's see. Spells of Magic site, huge. Oh, okay. That's a site. All right. Definitely try that. Thanks. It's 11:52 in Boston. Oh my gosh, you're in Boston. East Coaster. Yeah. Originally from New Hampshire. So big time East Coaster. Go Red Sox. Go Pats. Gotta say, I know, I'm sorry if there's some Yankee fans or out there, but so yeah. So that would be, I guess, Spells of Magic site is what Anna Joy is saying. Huge, but has lots of smaller communities that are tight knit. So Spells of Magic site, check out that. I do know like Wild Hunt site. I just know that there's been some. I don't know how long it kind of went away. I would really recommend going to Facebook. That's a huge one. That's where I get most of my groups, and then you'll find groups off of that. So like, for example, if you look up paganpride.org, they'll have pagan prides in your area and you can then get involved with the groups for that. And I highly recommend get on the planning committee for a pagan pride event because you'll meet so many friends. You'll get to be there for the whole planning and get to get invested in it and get excited. And you meet great people. And 8:53 in San Jose. Oh, and all right. So last one from Anna Joy. Speaking of tarot, what's a good medium of divination to start with for beginning diviners? That's an interesting question. I would say it's hard because what my family always start with for us, okay, are runes. So we have family runes that are they're not Norse runes. They're different. They're our own thing, but they're basically runes. So they are, they're stones. So that's what I started with as a young child. However, I got really into tarot in high school. It was something that I really kind of had an affinity for, and I enjoyed it. And then I totally fell out with it for college and for a while, and only kind of just, picked it up once in a while when I really felt called to it. So I would definitely say runes and tarot are great, but I really have felt like for a lot of mentees, I have been using oracle cards. Sorry, my dog barks when a car goes by. She thinks she's big and bad and going to save us. So oracle cards, I actually think that they're wonderful because I'm a huge proponent on meditative work with them and dream work. Dream work is so big part of my practice that I find it invaluable. So that would definitely be my recommendation, would be kind of probably runes or oracle, and then maybe going into some Rider-Waite tarot, some basic tarot. The Witch's Tarot is nice too. I've always had an affinity for Rider-Waite though, like the oldies but the goodies, right? I didn't know that. Look into it. Oh, so great. Yes, archetypal stuff, totally heavy on archetypal stuff. Absolutely. And I really love it too for kind of spirit journeys. So one of the parts of my family, I think I've mentioned this on here before. I'm biracial, so I'm Kanasitake. The Haudenosaunee were Mohawk, and spirit journeys, your spirit animal is very important. And so when I have a mentee, I use oracle cards oftentimes to help guide them through that journey, because I find that it gives them something to focus on if they weren't brought up in an environment where they already knew, who their guide was and who their connection lies with. So yeah, so absolutely. So that would be it for today, guys. It's I've been here for a while at this point now. It's going to be, oh my gosh, it's been 36 minutes. It's going to be so long. Kara's going to kill me. All right. So, all right, guys. Well, if you like this format, let me know. I think it's just cool because you get it right away. And so for timing wise, otherwise some of you, it might have been posted tomorrow based on the timing that you guys are saying. So, yeah, as always, blessed be. Aloha. Thank you so much for watching, and